Hello and welcome to this astrological outlook. We're going to cover the week in astrology for the week beginning the 8th of April 2015, going all the way up until the 15th. We may not do this every week, but this is just such a powerful week. I wanted to make sure that we covered some of this energy, especially as we are just coming out of an eclipse season. And it's really important to do so. So, does the truth hurt? That's a question I want to ask you. Does the truth truly hurt? Well, I think if you think about it, the only thing that the truth really hurts is the ego. Because the ego, on one level, wants to hide from the truth. And then once the truth is revealed to it, well, it can bring a lot of pain. And sure, maybe the truth can also hurt when we've been lied to, or when something has been covered up, or we feel that we've been kind of lost in illusion. But in those particular circumstances, again, it all boils down to the ego. The soul knows the truth. The ego goes through a process of revelations, understanding, and learning so that it can become closer to the soul. And why do I say this? Well, we've got a very powerful week in astrology where there is the potential for revelations, information coming your way that can break you out of a deadlocked position that you've been in for a while, but it's likely to do so in a rather explosive manner. We're going to talk a little bit more about all the particular aspects that are tying in with this, including a few sesquiquadrates. What are sesquiquadrates? Well, they're referred to as minor aspects, but that word is rather deceiving because many times they are quite stormy and quite explosive. When they're called minor aspects, well, they're really called a minor aspect because they are only applicable when they're around about 1 degree. So they don't last for very long. But by the same token, they are rather explosive aspects. And we have 3 of those going on this week. So without further ado, why don't we take a look at the astrological aspects the 8th of April. Something that's important to note is that Mercury and the Sun, as you can see on your screen, are traveling in close proximity to each other. Mercury is gaining speed and is going to catch up with the Sun over the course of the week. Whenever the Sun and Mercury are in close proximity to each other, well, it brings a deep insight because the Sun is known as the light bearer and Mercury is known as the messenger. And when these 2 planets conjunct each other, then it makes our ability to see or to tune into something even more prominent. And as this is going on, the Sun will have recently crossed the plane of the Uranus-Pluto square, which happened about a month ago, a little under a month ago, I should say. And Mercury is going to inch forward and conjunct Uranus and also square Pluto. Now, Mercury and the Sun and Uranus, and actually even the South Node, are all in a section of the sky that's called Revity. And I've spoken about this area of the sky extensively. It's you can think of it as like being in limbo. One stage of creation is complete. The next stage has yet to come into creation, but the preparations are taking place for new growth and a different life, a new chapter coming into being. And there's a strength that comes through this particular aspect, even though it's going to bring quite a lot of challenges. Something over time is becoming slowly revealed. With this information, you're refining it, tuning into it even more deeply until you get to a point where you're able to see it in rather clear perspective. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But basically on the 8th, you have Mercury squaring Pluto, right? Then it's going to go on later in the day and conjunct Uranus. So Pluto, by its very nature, is about peeling away at layers of the ego. That's its job. You can think of the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, as like the Vedic deities Brahma would be like Uranus, Vishnu would be Neptune, and Pluto would be like Shiva. And Shiva's basic thing that he does is destroys old forms so that something new can be born. But that form cannot be destroyed until the ego has actually let go of it. So there's been an area where perhaps information has been kept from you, or you've actually been hiding from yourself. And even though it can be a painful process to get to the root of this, slowly but surely, as you allow it to happen, it frees you from the space where you've been stuck and allows you to see something in a very clear and lucid manner over the course of the week. And with that information, you stand the potential to really know yourself, and with the details that come into being, make some very profound choices for yourself. This all happens, I should say, at the very same time that Jupiter is going to station right before it turns direct. If you see the R right after Jupiter there, that means that it's been retrograde for quite a period of time. And when a planet retrogrades, we tend to internalize the processes that are connected with that planet. And Jupiter, of course, is about expansion. So the last several months, it's been an internalization process growing inside of ourselves so that we can turn as Jupiter is making its direct motion and expand our lives outwards, right? Jupiter is in a section of the sky that's also ruled by Mercury. Mercury's in Revati, and I forgot to say that Revati is ruled by Mercury. But Ashadha, which is where Jupiter is also ruled by Mercury. So this is some very powerful mercurial energy, which is going to cause one to get to the root of something by being drawn into it, by being hypnotized, almost entranced by a specific set of circumstances that perhaps you haven't been able to figure out, but it's been so frustrating that you can do nothing but help to get to the root of it. And well, you might not like everything that you find out as you get to the root of it, but again, as we were talking at the beginning, it's better to know than it is to not know. Then the ego, sure, maybe it's brought to task, but the soul is more deeply connected to. And from that space, that's where the deepest level of growth can occur. Something that's going to happen, and I need to move my astrological clock forward a little bit in order to show you this. Let's scoot forward about a day or so. The exact degree of it doesn't matter for the purposes of exhibition. But basically, on the 9th, which is the day after Jupiter turns direct, Jupiter, Mercury, the Sun, and Uranus, and the Moon will form an aspect that is known as a grand trine. A trine is a harmonious aspect of 120 degrees. And a grand trine is when you have one planet or one set, or a set of planets rather, forming a 120 degree aspect to another planet or set of planets. And that set of planets is in turn forming another 120 degree aspect to another planet, which is again forming another 120 degree aspect. And it's called a grand trine, well, because it creates a triangle in the sky. And the moon on that day will be in a section of the sky, also ruled by Mercury, and this section of the sky is called Jyeshta. Jyeshta means the eldest. Jyeshta is related to wisdom, also strength of will with which one can rise above a situation and overcome difficulty. But this isn't the type of victory that is attained through a sheer exhibition of force. Rather, it's attained from withdrawing from a situation and gaining perspective on it. And from the space of gaining that much needed perspective, well, the details begin to fall into place. And as the details begin to fall into place, well, you might not like everything that you see once again. If those details involve another person, you may actually even find yourself becoming somewhat embroiled, in a little bit of criticism with the other individual. And sometimes conflict is a necessary part of life in order to move us on from the situation. But this may also occur as a matter of an inner dialogue that breaks you out of a very difficult situation within yourself. Now, after that happens, we're going to move on to, I believe, let's see, maybe one more day. I think we're going on to the 10th now. Wonderful. And what we have going on that day, let's talk for a moment about something that is called a sesquiquadrate. What is a sesquiquadrate? Well, a square, which is a 90-degree angle between planets, is a tense aspect. That tense aspect, once it releases, it brings opportunity. But something that should be noted is that what a sesquiquadrate is a square 90 degrees and a half 45 degrees. And you put 90 and 45 together and you have an angle of 135 degrees. Now these angles are really only applicable when they're within about a degree. So this is known as a minor aspect, but it can bring a very large degree of tension for that one day. Because, well, it's a square and a half, and it really tends to function like that. And what we're going to have going on the 10th is Mercury and the Sun, as they are closing in on their conjunction with each other. They're also going to form a sesquiquadrate with Saturn. So think of being in a state of limbo. You are devoted to a set of beliefs, devoted to a set of ideals that you really and strongly believe in. Or perhaps there is something that you have been pursuing and you are pursuing it with complete loyalty. Well, a little bit of information comes your way after you've been hanging in a state of limbo for so long that stands to break you out of that well, for lack of a better way to put it, encrusted and ossified way of looking at things. And again, it's like that concept of the truth dawning. Well, you may not like everything that it's showing to you, but it's a necessary revelation in order for you to have the capacity to move on. Basically, following on the tail end of this later on in the day, you're not going to see this in this picture, but Mercury will enter a section of the sky, a section of Aries that's called Ashwini. And Ashwini is very swift-moving energy. At the root, it has Dharma as its driving purpose, and it's about healing. The Ashwins, from which the word Ashwini comes from, are the divine physicians. And being the divine physicians, well, they bring movement and they bring healing, but based upon Dharma, that which is right, that which is correct for the individual. So there's a very huge potential for very profound healing to happen in collaboration with these particular aspects as Mercury will shift into Ashwini. Now, following a couple of days later, basically on the 12th, we have another two aspects, both of which are also exceptionally powerful. Mars on that day is going to form a harmonious angle with Neptune. And Venus is going to form its own sesquiquadrate with Pluto. Now, even though Mars and Neptune seem enticing in a very Neptunian way to talk about first, we're going to go straight to Venus and Pluto. Now, Venus is in Gemini. One of the things that's seldom talked about in regards to Venus is it gives us the capacity to make wise decisions. If you consider the royal court of the planets, then Venus would be the minister. Venus is the advisor. He gives good advice. Venus is in Gemini, very flexible, idea-oriented Gemini, able to see both sides of a situation. And well, in order to give good advice, you have to be able to see both sides of a situation. And Venus will be in a section of Gemini that's called Kritika. Kritika is very purifying energy, and it's also very truthful energy. When you put a sesquiquadrate involving Venus and Pluto, which is over in Purva Ashadha. And what I like to say about Purva Ashadha, well, it's about being completely real, blunt, upfront, and exceptionally authentic, even stubbornly so, right? There can be a bit of deepening of conflict in relation to this, but on another level, what it relates to for each individual, and if it's two individuals involved with each other, then it relates to each individual having to be true to themselves within a specific set of circumstances. If it's just one person, meaning you, then that means needing to be true to yourself, where you've perhaps been stubborn and putting forward a face which hasn't been completely helpful for you. Well, it's not time to wear those masks anymore. Now is the time for a breakthrough, and now is the time for you to be honest with yourself, and now is the time to move on. And we need to go into Neptune and Mars's particular aspect known as a sextile. Neptune in Purva Bhadrapada. Let's talk about Neptune first, right? Neptune, think of the concept of forms. Things take different forms over the course of our lives, but forms change. With Neptune, there can quite often be an appearance of one thing, when in actuality, the underlying essence is quite different. And the underlying essence is something that becomes revealed over time, constantly fine-tuned. You see it in one moment in being as one way, and in the next moment it's completely different. And then you think that's the way things are. Well, that is the way things are for the moment. But then even that changes again. For people who need a very large degree of security, well, you ain't going to get it through Neptune. But the way you can get it through Neptune is just recognizing that all you need to do is recognize the essence that's under the situation, not the form that that essence is being portrayed in. Now, Neptune is in Purva Bhadrapada. With this particular energy, Purva Bhadrapada takes abstract concepts from the higher realm of the mind or from the divine and brings them into concrete form. Now, it could actually be that you've been somewhat entrapped in an illusion and in a way of seeing a form. And what can happen in relation to this is with the dawning of this information. Another thing that's associated with Purva Bhadrapada is an elevation of energy. So if there's anger, then that anger can be elevated. But anger is really just there to serve a purpose, and that purpose is action, rather than sitting still with the information. It's about doing something with it. And what should you do with it? Well, let's look over here to our buddy Mars in Taurus, and in a section of Taurus that's called Bharani. Bharani is about letting go. It's about moving on. It's associated with Yama, the god of death. He ushers the souls from one realm into another. So one phase of your life is coming to an end, another phase is beginning. But with this information, because really what this astrology of the week is about is a revelation, an understanding of something that begins to dawn on you, takes shape, takes form. You begin to sense the deeper details in association with it. And well, you don't like those details, and you can get critical about it. You can criticize another person about it. You can even criticize yourself about it. But is that going to do any good to turn that anger either inwards or outwards? No. What's going to do the good is to take that anger and move on. Take that anger and make a shift. And that's exactly what you need to do in at least one area of your life, is make a very deep shift. Now, what area of your life might that be? Well, if you can respect, I'm just looking at a chart of the astrological aspects for the week. I don't know the areas of your chart that these particular alignments are going to fall in. So for that, well, you'd need a little more information, and that information can be found through one of my astrological services. There should be a link in this YouTube video that you can click on if you wish, or further down in the description area on this page, there's also a link to my astrological services page. If you visit that link, there's everything from one-to-one consultations, personalized video reports, which are recorded monologues, or even written reports, all available through the astrological services page of my site. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube page yet, you might consider doing so that you can get information every time I release a new video. That's going to do it for this look at the week of April 8th to the 15th. Until next time, my friends, do take very good care of yourself and use this information wisely. With knowledge comes power, but with power comes responsibility. Take very good care of yourself.